I saw you had some like a buddy in the blind the other day, and it was I don't know if it was his first time, but I think he was a new hunter.
Yeah, I mean my pretty much my community of folks. Anytime you see me out there, for the most part, unless I'm there with like Hunters of Color and Jimmy and those guys, like most of the people that I'm out there with, we're like 1 or 2 years in. I've got a guy that I've worked with this year that like, well, I think he had gone shooting once, and I took him out shooting and kind of like wet his beak a little bit, and he was very other side of this, like not into shooting, not into guns, doesn't really know how he feels about guns anymore, and now he's a shotgun owner. But he went through the whole journey, and I took him pheasant hunting. He hadn't had any success, and then he's like, I'm gonna go get a shotgun. I'm doing this, and
that's awesome.
It's been cool to see him like develop, and he's shooting birds now. And
dude, I can't believe how much you've done in just like a couple years. Like watching all your videos and posts, I'm like, man, this guy is getting after it.
I don't think
it's so awesome.
I'm a vampire. I forgot to mention that. A daywalker. Me and Blade are cousins.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
We're recording.
Yeah, we're recording. We should
Okay.
just
Cool.
jump into it.
Yeah.
Well, dude, thank you for doing this and taking the time out of your busy hunting schedule that you got going on. But yeah, no, I'm just glad that we got a chance to sync up, and we had a little bit of a talk before, kind of getting to know each other a few months back, and we've just been super excited to catch up with you since. But
that feels like it was in June or something.
Yeah, maybe more than a few months.
That was a long time ago. Yeah, it was definitely a while ago.
A lot. Well, hey, now we got a lot more to talk about. So
yeah,
it
we
worked
do.
out. Yeah, I think
John and I were like talking, like, how did we find Kenny? And I was like, and you had some video that I don't know. I mean, viral in hunting terms is like, but it had like a lot of, and it got fed to me. And I was like, this is awesome. Cause like me and John talk about community a lot. And I think it was something to do with that. And like, I sent it to John. And I was like, this guy's rad. Like we should try to have him on. And then we started following you. Yeah. And then I think that's how we connected. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, for me, when he sent me your stuff, it was kind of like, yo, this guy's trying to do some stuff like what you're doing. And I think that resonated with me right away because, you're in Portland. I grew up in the Bay Area, and those are two places where hunting isn't really, widely talked about or embraced.
You stay closeted.
Yeah, right.
Closeted hunters. Yeah.
And my experience kind of started during the pandemic, and that's when I was like, this is something I never thought about doing, and kind of got into it. And so, yeah, I was just super intrigued by your story and resonated a lot with that. But I'm, kind of curious, like how, maybe unpack that a little bit for us, you being new to hunting, like what did your journey into hunting look like?
Yeah. Honestly, it I've like wanted to hunt since I was a kid. I've been like, I think all little boys are obsessed with hunting a little bit. It's like you get to wear camo, you're walking around the woods with a gun, you feel like you're like military, but you don't want to be military, like wanted to do it since I was a kid. And then I just kind of, like the rest of my life, after I decided to quit my first career in finance and chase dreams, I was just like, you know what? Fuck it. Like, I've wanted to get into hunting for a long time. I don't know how to, but I know YouTube works. And so I got on YouTube, watched a bunch of videos, bought a rifle, and then like anybody else, you watch hunting videos and it's like the majority of the badass people are archery guys. And so then I went and bought a bow, same season, after being told that I should wait and hunt a couple of years before getting on a bow.
Really? Who told you that? That's weird.
It's you know what? It's funny because when I first heard it, when I first heard it, I was like, "Fuck you! I'm gonna do what I want to do," and I live off of that kind of energy. Like I want someone to doubt me, because then I'm like, I'm gonna do it now and prove you wrong.
Right.
And he was right. I should have definitely started out with a rifle, because like knowing nothing about animals and then trying to go in the woods and then get close to them in bow range. It's kind of it's a
so
reach.
that was the mentality. It wasn't like a skills thing with the weapon. It was more of like understanding your surroundings and like your objectives and like strategizing.
Absolutely, because I mean, which is also funny because I think I was a better shot last year than I was this year, because I literally shot from, like, when I picked up my bow in June, I shot, I would guess, at least 4 times a week, from June all the way up into our archery open elk season.
Do you live in Portland proper?
Yeah, and so I'm like, I grew up in the in the country. I'm not a fucking city person, honestly. I realized that about myself when I earlier this year, I had left the archery range and I had my bow literally leaving out of my car with my bow, and I look up and there's a raccoon, or not a raccoon, a skunk, and I literally go to draw back on it, and I was like, I'm in the middle of the city. Like, what am I doing? And then I go ask my neighbor, and I'm like, hey, do you mind if I shoot a skunk in your yard with my bow? And he's like, I don't care, dude. Go for it. And I was like, I think I've outlived my moment in the city at this point.
So it's the goal to try to move out to the country.
Yeah.
Try to get
I definitely am. And especially now that I'm, like, completely hooked into duck hunting, I'm like, find me some acreage. Grow some corn plots and dig a hole and pump water in it.
That's awesome.
So did you, like, we talked about YouTube and stuff. So did you, like, were you making, you're a filmmaker, like John. Were you making other types of films before hunting films, and then you caught the bug and then trying to transition completely?
I just have a bad habit of turning all of my hobbies into work.
Yeah.
And so originally before working in the, like, hunting industry, I was doing a ton of content in, like, the outdoor recreation space, kind of like snowboarding, skiing, mountain biking. And that was because I fell into that and was like, oh, I'm obsessed with this. I want to tell stories in this area. And I think that's just kind of like the like documentary kid in me. Like, I just love asking questions and the things that I'm, like, interested in. I think it's easier to then create content around that. And I use the word content, but it's like, I feel like
feels like a dirty word now.
It does, like, man. I hate it. Yeah. I freaking hate it. I'm like, I'm not a content creator. I'm a filmmaker, and I'm
totally.
Like, it doesn't matter. It's all the same.
Where does storyteller sit in that?
You know what's funny? I did, like, a little film festival years back, and like, this older director went up to, like, talk about a film he was working on, and someone introduced him, like, oh, this is the director of the film, and he goes, I'm not a director, I'm a storyteller. And ever since then, I'm like, damn it, now that word sounds lame to me.
Yes. No, yeah. That was like a popular term for a while, and now it's not as much, and I'm okay with that. I think all of the word DP, filmmaker, cinematographer, they all mean different things, but it's all the same thing at the end of the day. Like, we just point cameras at stuff and share stories.
Yeah, totally. Yep. Yeah. And so were you like making films quite a bit before you started getting into this stuff? Like, like, how did that sort of take shape? You grew up in the country, you got into film, and then what happened? Like, that made you, we kind of started talking about that a little bit. Kind of curious, like, how it really started to unfold. So
I didn't, like, go to school for filmmaking either. Shout out to YouTube University.
Yep. Same.
I studied business in undergrad, and then, like, started working in finance, and I worked at this company called The Standard, and I was an analyst. And I just, one day was like, it wasn't one day, it was a lot of days, and it was just like, I hate my life. And I started getting super depressed and didn't know where I was going with life, and I was just like, I can't fucking do this every day for the rest of my life. And then I was out climbing, like rock climbing, bouldering with some friends, and a buddy had a camera, and I picked it up, took a couple of photos, and there was just this one moment where my friend hit this hold, and the chalk came off of his hand. It's not a great image, but at the time it was like an amazing image to me, and it was crazy that I, like, captured the world the way I saw it in that very exact moment, and that stuck with me. And I was like, okay, I got to figure out how to turn this into a career. And then fast forward 9 months, I was a full-time photographer, and then fast forward like 4 more months, and I lost all my clients, and I was like, I want to do video anyways. Couple months, I landed a job at a production studio, and I worked there for 9 months, and then started freelancing in 2020, and I've been freelancing since, and just been, like, kind of a mix of, like, being hired as a DP and pitching my own projects, and doing a little bit of production company stuff and DP work. I like the mix of it though.
That's cool, man.
And awesome. So like as you're getting into hunting and angling, like we talked before, but like most hunters and anglers, it was fun, but it wasn't successful. Could we say that? Was it fun?
I was like, I don't even know if it was that fun, to be honest. There's just something special about it. I can't even say it's that fun. Like sitting there casting and not catching shit, or going in the woods and hiking around and not seeing anything. That's not fun. But like, what is fun is the idea of actually accomplishing the thing you went out there to do. And there was just something that clicked, like the most human I've ever felt. And I was like, okay, it was like one of those moments where I'm like, okay, I gotta figure out how to do this for the rest of my life.
Do you look back on those times now and you're like, man, I was casting, if I would have just done this different or tied this on, like I would have caught something? Like
casting? No, because I still don't catch shit.
You're like, nice.
Like fishing is, I don't know how to fish. I suck at fishing. I've been like deep sea fishing. I've done all sorts of stuff on like jobs, and I get the opportunity to be around like these amazing anglers, and they're like, no, you just got to do this. I do it, touch the rod, no fish are coming on that hook. Like it's a guarantee I'm not catching a fish. And so I get lucky every now and then with trout. I've never caught really anything else. I mean, I just was having a conversation with a buddy where it's like when you go on these guided fishing trips, the guides also fish, depending on where you're at. If you're in Alaska, they barely fish. But like everywhere else, it seems like they have poles in their hands as well. Yeah. And the guide was hooking the fish and then handing the rod off so then you can fight the fish. And I'm like, that means you didn't catch the fish.
It means you're fishing for him.
Yes, exactly. Like
you're doing the hard work.
He did the hard part, and I'm getting the easy grunt work.
You're just taking the picture.
Yeah.
Easy. Depends on how big the fish is.
Yeah. It's easy, and it's a freaking 22-pound salmon, and I'm this sucks, but I didn't hook him, and I don't know, like I still can't figure it out, and I'm like, I don't know. It's just fishing is not my thing, and I found some happiness in duck hunting. Like that's the thing that's clicked the most out of everything, and it's like, okay, I love this. Get to watch the birds like work, and you call at them, and they're just like, they turn, and then they come check out what you're doing, and then they go a little bit further, and you hit your call again, and they turn again, and you're like, okay, it's working.
That's cool. I've yet to get out and get on a duck
hunt. And I can promise
so.
you that didn't happen when you first started duck hunting. So that's, I guess, the point I was trying to make, is that's rad that like now you can look back and be like, God, I was an idiot. Like,
yeah. Duck hunting, I look back on that stuff and I was like, duh, you weren't gonna shoot any ducks in that hole. Like look at that spot. What did you expect? Like there's there's so much of looking back on that stuff, and you're like, man, I was dumb. Like my first elk season. And I filmed a lot of my first elk season. I had a guy out with me filming because I was like, I'm going to make this into a film. It's going to be like a guy who comes from ground zero and kills his first elk. Stupid thought. And every brand that I talked to that was like, I'm not giving you money for that. I'm like, I get why they didn't give me money for that now.
Yeah. It's I mean, YouTube University, the magic of YouTube, right? Makes it look easy, but it ain't easy.
Yeah,
it's kind of, I mean, to me, it's funny because when I started filming hunting stuff, I had buddies that I like went to college with, like some of my fraternity brothers, and they're like, you shouldn't be filming hunting, da 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 da. I'm like tripping balls about it, and I just didn't understand it. And then I watch all of these hunting films, and I start to get to work in the industry and stuff, and I'm like, so much of it is fake, and they make it look real, and you can't tell. So then you think like, oh, all I have to do is get the gun and show up in the woods, and I'm going to shoot a freaking 7x7 elk. And it's like, that's not going to happen. And most people, they just watch all these films and watch all these hunters have success, and they think they're going to do the same thing.
Right.
Yeah.
And so then they buy all this gear, and then they never use it again after their first season. And they're like, fuck this sport. Like, I was lied to. This is not, I'm not getting the experience that I was promised. And I don't know. It definitely frustrates me. And I'm like, we got to do something better. Like, not everyone's going to win every time they get out in the woods, but you have to find the joy inside of the journey to get to the win at some point.
Yeah. My buddy and I just went on our first deer hunt this season, And it was also our first like public land like overnight hunt too. So it was kind of like all this new stuff wrapped into one. And of course we like did the hardest thing that we could do locally, which is like 2,000 feet up and 2 miles with our packs on. And like, yeah, it's quite the hike. We like only saw a doe, but it was like such an amazing experience. We filmed it, put a film out, and I agree with you, man. I feel like some brands and some people out there are putting films out where they're trying to highlight, you know, that it's about the experience. It's not always about the kill, right? Yep. But I do think there needs to be more of that in hunting culture.
100%.
And it's just like, yeah, it's great for, I think it's great for the industry, right? Like I think in a way it will attract, maybe not just attract more people, but it'll be more sticky for people.
Yes.
But I think it's just a good message for people that maybe will never even hunt ever. Just
that
to
won't
see
give
like
it a shot. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, well, they'll have more respect for it and be like, wow, this is about so much more. You know, have you kind of felt that as you've been making your films?
Absolutely. I think like in the beginning because everything you watch it's always focused on the kill. Which is also interesting because now we're going through this weird phase with YouTube and the censorship of everything. Like you can't show dead animals anymore, that kind of a thing. Guns firing.
I didn't know that. Interesting.
Yeah, it's we're heading in a strange place. I don't know how I feel about it yet.
The internet overlords.
I have a new film that I'm going to be putting out in like a month or so, and I guess YouTube might not be the platform.
do not like. There's like one scene in my last film, and I couldn't run ads against it or anything because there was like actual body, like animal being carved into, and so it did not like that. And then a lot of brands are trying to avoid that as well now. Because of that and like the censorship, but
because it can't be monetized at that point, right?
Yep.
Gotcha. So exactly. You could put it up, but just won't monetize it. Okay.
Yeah, and so then it's like you can't reach a broader audience because then YouTube's not going to push that film in the same way that it would.
So, like, let me ask from a non-filmmaker perspective. Ask you guys, like, both of you make films independent of other brands. So, like, Kenny, you make your own stuff. John, you make your own stuff where you guys just go out and you are doing the activities. And, like, you're telling the stories, it sounds like, in a similar way. But, like, and I guess for Kenny, like, as you've started working with more companies in the hunting and fishing and outdoor industry, are you finding that is it frustrating at all in like how they want to tell a story that might be going back to that way we were just talking about is a little bit frustrating? Like
I don't think that it's so hard because I can't speak on it in the same way that I could in about other industries, but because I just don't have enough experience yet. And I think like when I was pitching projects and I still am young in the industry, but like very, very new to it. A lot of people didn't want to even hear because they look at your content and they're like, what? You don't even hunt, dude. What? No, I'm not going to sponsor your film. I'm not going to give you anything. I'm going to ignore this message and pretend you don't exist. But I think like as I've started watching more and diving into a lot of the brands, I think there's a shift happening right now where brands are trying to figure out how to communicate with other people while still making the good old boys happy, which is what they have to do right now because those guys are going to all die off at some point. And they're brands, they have to sell product. And the only way you're going to sell product is by bringing new people into the industry. And the only way you can save this industry realistically is by bringing more people into the industry. Yeah. So I think there's going to be a little bit of a shift that happens. I don't know what it's going to look like in the same way like the extreme sports outdoor spaces. It was all about like black and brown faces for a good little minute there. And it was like, oh, let's show as many black and brown people as we possibly can. And I don't think that that's going to necessarily be the case for hunting and fishing, but I think it's going to be more about like accessibility. I think it's going to be less about the big game kills where it's a brand that I've worked with, they're already making that transition and it's focused on everyday people.
Right.
Interesting. Yeah.
And so I think there's going to be quite a bit of a shift, but I hope so also because I'm tired of seeing all these dudes just go out and kill these monsters, and I'm like, that's cool. I didn't even see a freaking spike in the unit I hunted in, so can you point me in that direction, please?
Yeah, you want it to be tangible. You want it to feel like Like there's a spot that's maybe from where we're at right now, and it's an awesome quail hunting spot. It's really chill. You just literally like park off and you're on, public land. And you can just walk up and down this area, and
You're
it's
blowing up
super
everybody's
fun.
spot, bro.
Yeah.
What was that?
You're blowing up everybody's spot.
I'm not blowing it up. There's railroad tracks go real far.
It's well known. I'm just.
Hey, I didn't give coordinates, okay? I'll bleep it out. It'll just be like bleeping while I'm talking.
Yeah, that whole statement. Just
I'm going to do it.
bleeps.
I'm going to do it. I'm going to bleep it out. It'll be
like,
hilarious.
there's this quail spot.
Yeah, exactly. Boop. But for real though, like I love the fact that it's, it's not far from here, and I'm so motivated to just get out and like go out for like a couple hours before work. And it reminds me of like, we talked about this a lot in the last episode, but it reminds me of when I was skateboarding, and maybe I started working full time, but I would get out and skate a little bit before work or after work or whatever. And to find those ways, like you said, it's about that accessibility and like being able to get out and find tangible ways to do it, where it's not like, okay, I got to go sink thousands of dollars and try to get the time off work and away from family or friends, to get out to Montana to hunt monster animals, like you said. Like I think we don't realize how much there is around us, and the more that we push to have access to those areas and celebrate them, I think that's going to also help hunting grow, because then not everyone's rushing to that one same mountain in the middle of the country. They're finding that they can hunt in all corners,
Right. Like not everyone's trying to get a over-the-counter archery tag in Colorado.
Right. Exactly.
And now things have changed in Colorado because
that
exact thing has happened, where it's like there's this big push, and instead of, which I'm like, the more I do it, the more I'm like, I get why people are so secretive about like hunting in specific places, because they get blown out. But I don't know. It's like, as long as we're not doing it in excess and we're not destroying these places, the animals are going to exist. We just have to do everything we can to protect them as well.
Yeah. And I want to see more like hunting films that are like hyper local. Like I would love, like I started out watching Meat Eater and stuff, and that was great. It like opened it up to me, gave me a different perspective. Like, oh, it is about the food. Cool. But now like what I'm craving is, I want to see the most random towns all over the country, globally too. And just like spots you wouldn't have thought of, and people are hunting that spot. And it's not just like the same thing again. All right, cool. Deer hunting in Idaho or something or whatever. Like, I know you're going on a hunt in Idaho next year, which is awesome. Kansas. But yeah, exactly. It's like, okay, I've seen that film like 1,000 times. Show me something unique and interesting by someone who's like outside of that sort of circle, that like celebrity hunting circle. I want to see like the outsiders and the misfits get out there, That's interesting.
Yeah, I think it's doable, but it's always like, then how much of it can you actually give away, like location wise? Like for us, we've got Sabi Island, right? Like duck hunting, it's world-class duck hunting. People know it all over. And so you can drop that name and it's not that big of a deal. But I have a buddy, Lael, who is a guide out in the Olympic Peninsula in Washington, and he made a film and he dropped the river that he was on, and he got so much shit for it.
That's a good point.
Yeah. And so it's like finding there's got to be like a balance, right? Like some way of doing it without blowing up spots, but showing regular everyday people also. Like I want to see the guy, like I don't remember whose it was, and I may be quoting your own project, but there was a guy who was getting ready for a hunt, and he had nowhere to like exercise, so he would literally wear his backpack and hike around his neighborhood. And like go up and down bleachers and stuff, and I'm like, this is what I want to see. Like
that's cool.
The thing that's motivational and aspirational for a regular person, because I'm gonna hunt an over-the-counter organ and get out in the western coastal forest. So it's like I want to see that.
My buddy Chris gets like fully kitted out and goes and uses the Stairmaster at the gym, like with his pack and everything. I love it. Like full like 60-pound pack, like on the Stairmaster.
I love those like videos of people like with a weight and they're like doing their like draw like, movements and stuff. That's so good. That's a really good point though, dude. Like it's not even about the hunt. It's like, how do you get ready for a hunt? I think that's really cool. And like the interesting, like, cause that would be interesting, but like inspiring too, of like, oh yeah, I don't have to like go train or scout in the same way that, you know, people with maybe quote unquote more access might have. Like, what are the ways we're all getting ready for season, or, you know, learning on our own?
I'm curious, like, for both of you guys, like, I grew up like, and Kenny, it sounds you grew up in the countryside as well, but like there's an aspect of the failure that is like really curious to me, and like I was more embedded in the cultures, and like you didn't necessarily hunt growing up, Kenny, but you grew up in the countryside. John, you didn't really have much like with either of those, but then you guys start these like adventures, like these, and career changes in some cases, and then you fail repeatedly like at them. And like we're sitting here talking about like the barrier to entry to hunting is like difficult because the success rates are so low. Yeah. So like what is it that you guys like, why keep putting yourself, what separates you from other new hunters, I guess is the question.
That's a good question. Yeah.
I don't know. I honestly don't know. I think so I was an athlete in high school and then into college, and I ran Division I track at a decently high level, and I think like, and I was a high jumper and a long and triple jumper, and so high jump you always end on a failure. Like your best day is still you end on a failure. Oh,
dude, that is profound.
Interesting,
right?
Yeah.
And so I think there's that, and then I know that like what I learned later in life, because I got into mountain biking and snowboarding and now hunting and all these things in my middle to late 20s. And so I realized like the thing that the kids get when they start young is that they get used to just smashing their head into the wall over and over and over and over until they finally break through. And it's normalized. And whereas I didn't necessarily have that, but I was like, I want to, like, I watch all these videos and I'm like, I want that success. And I know I can't get there unless I'm consistently failing. And if I do have success now, especially big game hunting, because big game out here is like, a good unit is like 15%.
Yeah.
So it's like, if I get it now, I'm just lucky. Like I just got absurdly lucky, but I know that it's just going to be failure after failure after failure, and I might get an opportunity where I might be in range on an animal, but I don't even get to draw on it, or I draw on it and it sees me draw and it runs off, and that was my only opportunity all year. And so I'm like, I just know in advance that it's going to be a lot of suffering and it's going to be a lot of sucking, but when I finally do get the payoff, it's going to be totally worth it. Like I mean, this last year, for our deer season, I went out and was like, I'm going to hunt deer archery. This unit allows me to shoot does, and it's like one of two, I think, units without a draw tag that allows you to shoot does with archery. And there was does everywhere in this unit, and I knew it. And I got in there, shot one, and then jumped it. And then kept jumping it because I didn't fucking know you're supposed to sit and wait and let them die.
Gotcha.
And I never retrieved it because I just kept pushing it and pushing it and pushing it and pushing it and pushing it.
Yeah.
And that was like a shitty hard lesson to learn. But then I was like, dang, I can't wait till next year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
And I think it's because I'm like, I won't make that mistake again.
Yeah.
Right.
So there's something exciting about failing.
What about you, John?
Yeah. I think in some ways, you no matter what you're going to do in life, you know, if it's like, I mean, honestly, friendships, relationships, sports, work, career, all this kind of stuff, like you're going to experience failure. And there are some things where it's a lot harder to experience failure versus others, right? And the one thing I like about, you know, hunting, and there are things like that where it's really rough to go through an experience like that. But I think a lot of forms of failure, missing the shot or just not seeing anything, or, you know, not being able to get close enough to an animal. And I kind of like the failure in a way. Like I almost want the failure. I want it because it's a safe space to fail, because it's just me. Like I'm not competing against anybody else.
Maybe you don't want it, but you
not
accept
want
it.
But it's more than acceptance, though. It's more than acceptance. It's I know I'm going to fail at things in life to get better at them, and this is one area where it's. I guess maybe a better way of saying it is it's teaching me how to fail better.
Whoa, but don't
you know what I mean?
Don't you I don't know, it like beats me up. Like I get that's not a good term. I get
I know what you mean.
Kenny,
I know what
John
you mean.
is John is so positive. It's gonna like bug the shit out of you eventually.
Yeah, I'm like, how? Because I get like pissed off when I'm not, like, if I'm not having a good day. Like my mentor was out with me the whole first season, and I was like, it was a struggle because I'm like, dude, I just want to see an elk. Like, we saw elk all year up until the season opens. Like, what the fuck are you doing? Like,
they know.
Just let's go into the elk. And
yeah,
you know, we did everything that we possibly could to make it happen, and it just never happened. Yeah, and then I lived in the upset feelings like for a solid year, you know? Like,
yeah, dude. Yeah.
I don't, and I won't let it go, and it bothers me, and so I don't enjoy failing. I hate failing.
You're competitive, though, huh?
Yes.
You're not very competitive.
Yeah, we were just talking about this about work, and I was wrapping some things up, and I'm like, I feel like I want to be a high performer, and some people mistake that as competitive, and so I'm not. You know what I mean? Like, I just
like
don't
you dial your shit, but like
whatever I'm working on, like it's got to be as good as it can be.
Yeah.
But I'm not trying to compete, really. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, it's interesting. I think that maybe that's why. Like I'm. Yeah, I guess you're right. I don't like failing. No one likes failing, but I like that it's teaching me how to feel better. So when I go back to work and I'm like, fuck, I should have done this. I did that wrong. I look back in hindsight and I'm like, dang, if I would have approached that project differently. But now it's like, I feel like I move on faster from it. Like, okay, cool. Yeah, I just got to do this.
And I think we do. I mean, I think, you know, I started fly fishing. I think the first fish I caught on the fly was like, I was like 10, 11, 12. But dude, I still have days where I just get worked. Like, and I'm not content. I'm not okay with that. Like, I'm super competitive too, Kenny. So it's like, I think we're just wired a little different than John. It doesn't mean that we don't want have the same goals.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just our path of getting there is a little bit different. Right.
Yeah. Like mine it's a problem. Like if I'm fishing, for instance, I'll stay until we can't fish anymore. Like till it's past dark. Right. Because I'm like, I just want to fucking catch something. Yeah. And I can't turn it off, and and I try to check myself, especially when I'm with other people, because I'm like, this is not the way other people want to enjoy this, Kenny. Turn that off. Don't be a dickhead. And so like, it becomes like almost like a problem, but it's fine. It's fine. We all want
everything's fine.
I do have to say though, dude, like, and I was saying earlier on, like, you've been like getting at it and like getting a lot of hunts in, and it's, you know, for someone who maybe doesn't feel like I'm as competitive, it's really inspiring to see someone like yourself who maybe is, even if you're competitive within yourself. Yeah. It motivates me. So I'm like super, like when you started posting all those photos of you and your dog, like out there fishing or not fishing, duck hunting, like I was like,
yeah, dude,
I want to get out there now. And like,
you went and got a dog.
Yeah. You went like, straight to it, man.
Dude. It wasn't like you had this dog and he was sitting around and he was like, I guess I'll be a duck hunting dog. Like, you're like, I'm
got
in.
A dog. Yeah. And it was like a compromise because my girlfriend wanted a dog and I was like, I'm not getting a stupid dog. Like, I'm getting a dog that I can hunt. And so I wanted to get like a straight up hunting breed, and she's not for that. And I was a doodle is a compromise. Yeah. Like a doodle, I can still get it done. Yeah. And he's great. Like today we had a pintail we shot. We had two that dropped. One we saw where it dropped. The other one I was like, I'm pretty sure it went into the corn, but I have no clue. And I don't even know if it's dead or not. We got the one, put it down, and then Bo literally did a blind retrieve, and I was like, I'm so freaking proud. I trained this dog myself.
That's cool, man.
He's like full on. Granted, he's like born with it as well, but like
right.
He's full on, and I like yeah. It's like when I'm into something, I'm 100% in. I ended up buying a boat. I'm like,
dude.
It's too much.
So not only are you competitive, but you have an addictive personality as well.
It's a bad combo.
Dude, I hunted over a doodle for the first time this year, and I will say I was really impressed. Like we were doing doves, a dove hunting, but it was like I was super impressed. Like not an animal that I'd ever hunted over or with or whatever.
It's funny because I've met other doodles out now when I go hunt. And I'm like, I didn't know people hunted with this dog. Like,
dude, I had no idea.
It was just a cute house dog.
That's awesome.
Yeah, like it's like every time you like talk to somebody, oh, what kind of dog is that? Well, I'm allergic to dogs, so I got a doodle. Like every single time. So, like I killed ducks, so I got this doodle.
Yeah. I ran into a dude that like he's been upland bird hunting, and we have like a history of run-ins together, and he low-key kind of judges me, and he lives in my neighborhood, and he's like, oh, I saw you hunt, and I was like, yeah, I got him so I can hunt, and he's like, do doodles hunt? I'm like,
what do you mean got him? Like,
got him.
Like got him so your girlfriend doesn't like sneeze? Like that's so funny. That's awesome though. No,
yeah,
I've loved
it,
watching you like in the blind with him, and like, dude, his first retrieve and like all that stuff.
Yeah.
So cool.
Yeah.
I gotta be honest too, I'm not like a huge fan of doodles, but watching yours hunt makes me feel like that doodle just showed up all the other doodles in the world.
I wasn't either until
I'm a fan of your dog, and I like that he's sticking it to all the other ones.
Right? He's still a little baby as well. Like,
that's awesome. Yeah.
When he's ready to go, he'll sit and tell me that he's ready to go. He's like 11 o'clock rolls around, and he's like, "Come on, Dad, let's go." And he'll sit there and just like talk to me, just whining. And I'm like, all right, we'll go, we'll walk.
Mm-hmm.
What would you have gotten if she was just like, oh yeah, you can get any dog you want?
Man, I wanted a GSP. I wanted a GSP super bad. Yeah. But it was because in my mind I thought I was gonna be way more into upland bird hunting, and I'm not. I don't get it. I like. It's the same as elk hunting, dude. Like you're just out there and you're like, maybe I'll see him, maybe I won't, and then you don't shoot anything, and then you spent 6 weeks climbing mountains for no reason.
Right. Is it? Should we call it upland game hunting or hiking? What is hiking. The more appropriate?
It's hiking with a lot of expensive stuff.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think that's why I like it, because I sit behind a desk all day and I'm like, cool, this is something that really forces me to get out. Okay. But yeah, man, it's so tiring. Like we just did a little overnight and hiked maybe 10 miles through like some terrain. Like we literally had to like work our way through this crazy creek and then up this hill and like around, and we found a really cool spot, and I got one quail and no one else got anything, and it was like 10 miles, 3 of us, and we had a GSP with us too, so we still only got one.
You burned more calories than that quail provided by far.
Way more.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but it was awesome. So I see your point though. Like if that's a thing, like you're out there moving around a lot, and like I think if I was too, I'd probably be like, I don't know.
And they are not like you. So like to the point about doodles, I was hunting dove over doodle. So you can still take that dog and go like, I'm going to go dove hunt and probably quail hunt, you know? Yeah. Whereas I don't think you could go the other way, like with the GSP to the blind.
No.
Right? Like there's no way. Like
no. People are like, oh, he retrieves, and I'm like, but he's not going to sit in the blind with you for 5 hours. Like,
yeah.
There's no way.
In Oregon in the cold.
In the cold and the wet. Yeah, absolutely not. My doodle won't. He like fucking hates it. So I have to bring like heaters and stuff with me. Yeah. So the load is definitely heavier because I got him, but I'm like, it's fine. The next dog, I'm like, maybe I'll get just a lab. I've always said black people don't get labs, but I take it back now. I'm like, okay, there's some black dudes that duck hunt and they got labs, so it's fine.
Yeah. Yeah, you are a black hunter. Dude, you're a black hunter in Portland. Like,
yeah. And it's crazy because I'm not even a monopoly. Not a monopoly. What's the word I was thinking of?
Anomaly.
Anomaly. I'm not an anomaly. Two of my closest friends also hunt.
And are also black.
Yeah. Actually, no. And there's another dude, Brian. I've met a lot of black dudes that hunt, but I also am like kind of seeking them out. So
Before, like when you were brand new to hunting, or fishing, like, did you run into any black people in the forest?
I have not like showed up to a fishing hole or gone to the woods and ran into a black person. That's the one thing I haven't experienced yet. I don't think.
Yeah,
I'm like, no, I haven't. Not at all. I'm kind of surprised that I haven't duck hunting, to be honest. But that's weird. I have not thought about that.
So like most of the time, to your point earlier, like you're seeking them out.
Yeah.
But like, or like Hunters of Color, a great group.
Yeah.
Like, so they're it's like scheduled outings, things like that, or you're looking for camaraderie, and so you find these people that are like you,
or through like social media, like so, which is funny because my it's kind of cheating because my two closest friends that I do hunt with that are black, we all got into hunting at the same time.
Oh, cool.
It is because I'm like, it doesn't really count. They weren't like hunters, and then we met and became friends. We were like, I was like, I want to hunt, and then my other homie was like, yo, I secretly want to hunt, and I was like, bro, I just bought a rifle. Because again, we live in the Pacific Northwest. You kind of got to be a closeted hunter, because then it's super complicated. You're like, you're just black, West. You hunt, you like what? You like guns? This is I can't compute.
Well, I think there's a like in your defense, there's a strength in numbers like approach to it too. Like
absolutely.
I don't know, like you and me get along perfectly well, but you may be more comfortable asking those guys questions than asking me questions.
That's fair.
Regardless of experience.
Yeah. I'm like, I think like being able to be, especially a lot of this is like you're sitting around. You have a lot of time sitting around, so it's like if you're gonna be sitting around, you want to sit around with people that like you already have like some sort of built-in connection with and camaraderie with. And I'm like, that's why these old cranky white dudes, I'm like, I get why they're hanging out with old cranky white dudes. Like that's who they are. Like, they want to be around that. I'm not mad at you for that. I'm just sad that I don't fit in with that.
Right. And now that you have like some seasons under your belt and some experience and some stories or lies or whatever, now that maybe broadens that opens up a little bit. So maybe you are sitting with them and me and John.
For sure. I mean, I have that now. Like
yeah. But that's the point. The evolution is super cool.
Right.
Like
yes. Yes. Yeah. It's kind of wild too because when I first got into hunting, I think because the hunting industry has done such a shit job of showing what the industry truly is made of, I thought it was just going to be a bunch of like cranky racist old white dudes, and then I'm one time my truck broke down in the woods. This happened multiple times actually at this point, and every single time, obviously because it's hunting, it's been some mostly old white dudes that have just like stopped, and I'm like, fuck, why couldn't it have been like the fairy tale black dude that's back here? To come fucking say
fairy tale black dude.
And then they're just like nice dudes, and I'm like, man, I've been completely wrong about you guys this entire time. Like I placed a judgment on you, and I didn't even know you, and it kind of sucks. And I'm like, okay, I get it. I get it for sure.
Do you find like in spending time with Hunters of Color, like, because I know they have some very accomplished outdoors people, and they have some very novice. Do you find that they have similar like experiences, or that I guess the question I'm trying to ask is like, are they just like, nah, I don't want to go hang out with the old white dudes, I'm just gonna hang out like with my people here, I'm just not ready for that yet?
I think it's a mix. It's definitely a mix because I have the like opportunity to have conversations when I'm interviewing people and talking about a lot of different things when I'm with Hunters of Color as well. And there are some people that are like, no, I don't really have a desire to like do this and be in this uncomfortable situation as it is, and then have to be around other people that I don't know and don't really necessarily feel comfortable around.
Right.
And then there's other people that are like, I don't care, I just want to get good, and whoever wants to give me that knowledge, I'm going to take it. And I'm like one of those people where I'm like, I'm going to ask fucking everybody. Like if you're smashing birds and I see it, I'm going to do the weird, uncomfortable thing and like go walk down to your blind and be like, bro, what's your setup? Like, what do you got going on over there?
Have you ever experienced like really shitty, uncomfortable situations in the woods, like, and you know, because of race?
Man, honestly, I think I had like one experience, but it was just like shitty people. Savi's is like, it's like the worst of the worst because Savi is our like duck spot here in Oregon. It's like the worst of the worst because it's like a bunch of like, I hate that I'm saying this publicly, but there's a lot of crusties there. Like, they're just like angry. There's like a bunch of old white dudes that are like, I've been hunting this for the last 45 years and it's blown out. And then there's, you know, a bunch of guys that are like entitled because they have great jobs and they're just trying to get it in. And so it's kind of like you get a mixed bag. But I've had like one weird moment there, and I don't know if I'd call it race or what, but dude was definitely a dick, and I'm like, you gotta chill out, man. Like there's no reason for this. And I'll like bring back that energy if I can tell it's intentional. And I'm like, all right, bro, like what's up? What do you want to do? Oh, you don't? Okay, chill the fuck out then. Like, we're all here to have fun and we're enjoying ourselves.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'm curious about Hunters of Color. Like, how did you start working with them, and what is that like? Like, what's it all about?
So Hunters of Color, I actually had reached out when I first wanted to get into hunting, and so Jimmy's the founder of Hunters of Color, and I reached out to him, asking him about bows, and he was the one that was like, don't buy a bow, dude. Like, give it 2 seasons and then try to hunt on a bow. And then we kind of like would have little conversations here and there. And then one day, he was like, hey, we've got this event. Are you interested in like coming out and filming? And I'm like, hell yeah. Then it didn't work out. And then we ended up being able to finally collab on a shoot, and it was a good time. And he's like, dude, let's figure out a way to like make this happen. And we've just kind of become like good friends. I definitely look up to him as like a mentor, and he's the community that they're building is legitimately special.
You mentioned it a little bit earlier where like the hunting and fishing, the outdoor industry, and had leaned a little too heavily into certain things, but you didn't feel as though like getting more diversity was one of those things.
Yeah.
I don't know, having been like involved in certain like, you know, nonprofits and conservation orgs and stuff like that, there was like internally for a long time
lots of dialogue.
Yeah, a lot of dialogue about it, man. And it was like, it was kind of one of these things like where like we looked at it, and like one of the people I'm really close with, like in those conversations is a black guy.
Yeah.
And we all just kind of like, is this too hard? Like, where's the threshold? Where's the point of like, like, does it, I think that we look at it from a race standpoint a lot of times, and especially like, you know, there's like the people that are going out of their way to like make race like a subject.
Yes.
And in hunting, I think it can happen because of like atoning for past, you know, whatever. Yeah. But like, you haven't felt that way in hunting, is what I'm hearing.
No, I don't think. Again, I don't think the hunting industry is gonna allow for it. Is the thing. Not. I don't want to say not allow for it, but not in the same way that the outdoor industry did it, where it was like super played out. It was kind of gross and forced, and the hunting industry isn't going to do that. One, because when you look at like culturally speaking, like where's most of the hunting gear being sold?
Right.
It's not you ain't got a lot of dudes out west buying hunting gear. That's where a lot of that sort of conversation comes from, in my opinion. I don't think you get it as much in the South. It's just like, nah, we just hunt, we just do this shit.
And I know, and I don't want to like. I know you're not speaking for all black hunters out there by any means. But like, would you say that like overdoing it, like, so say the outdoor industry did, it's actually a turn off It actually is like, it's like being in that duck blind, being uncomfortable with that situation. Like it makes it more like that than anything.
Yeah, and I think it just like I don't know. I don't think the hunting industry is necessarily the right space, just because of the type of folks that are in hunting, right? Like it's more of a conservative space. You're not going to see people that are open to a lot of different ideas that are being tossed around these days. So I think like there just has to be a way of doing it that looks different. And I think like my take on that is just showing us do it. It doesn't have to be about, oh, woe is me, it's really difficult because I'm black and I had all this trauma associated with being black. No, fuck all that. Like, just show us hunting. Like, the same way that you film Steve Rinella hunting, like, it's the same thing. You know, like the dudes at 24/7, they're like probably some of my favorite people to watch, and obviously because they're duck hunters anyways. But watching them, like, they just are themselves. And they're being filmed doing the thing they fucking love doing, and that's it. And I think that's the way that the hunting industry really should take on, if they're going to try to push and get more people involved. And I've had conversations with folks where they're like, well, a lot of it is, you know, you go to an event, like, you know, I don't know what the hunting industry version of it is, but like outdoor recreation, like OR. The hunting version of that, and it's like they're hosting a class about race in hunting industry, and it's led by a white dude, and it's like, well, I don't want to go to that shit. I don't want a white dude telling me about being black and hunting. And so I think there's some of that needs to change as well inside of the hunting industry, and that may encourage more folks to get out. But you look at like groups, again, like Hunters of Color, Brown Folks Fishing, there's so many out there that are doing the work and doing it in a way that's authentic and real. That's encouraging more folks to get out and feeling safe to be out there, and feel not that it's not safe to be out there. It is and it isn't, you know, but to encourage folks to get out there in a way that like feels authentic and real to them is mad important. And there are some organizations that are doing a hell of a good job doing it. And it's like when you take leaders from those communities, right? Like it's not like Jimmy is telling you how to do Hunters of Color in Oklahoma. No, he's doing the Oregon one, and he's got some Oklahoma boys out there that are doing the Oklahoma boys and girls.
Because Jimmy doesn't know shit about Oklahoma.
Exactly. Like the culture, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know what he knows about Oklahoma, but it's like the culture is different. You know, everywhere you go, it's going to be different culture. And so when you let the people that are about that culture teach the folks that are out there, then they're going to relate, and they're going to be interested in being out there, and they want to be around that.
Yeah. And you said authentic, and I think that, like, you know, when it's pushed, when it's an agenda item, like it should be an agenda item, but it shouldn't always be the biggest agenda item. It needs to be authentic. It needs to be, you know, and I think that's where I get frustrated with a lot of it is like, and I don't know, I think there's a generational gap too between us and maybe some of the people that are making decisions. And you look at it and you're like, that is not the way that I would go about that. Like that is not how I'd get anyone, let alone like a black person to join.
I mean, we're also talking about, we're comparing marketing efforts to grassroots efforts. And I think that's I think that's the whole point, is that, I mean, whether it's hunting or not, like these organizations and these groups that are a little more localized and community driven are speaking to the people that are right next to them, right?
But like, that's my point, though, in general about this, is that, like, I think the hunting industry has done a piss poor job of their marketing efforts in general, right? Like, if it felt more grassroots, I think there would be more people involved in hunting
more
and fishing.
Authentic,
Exactly. And you have to make it aspirational, because that's going to be the thing that makes people buy the $1,000 jacket and the $2,000 shotgun and, you know, all the stuff. But at the same time, like, if it felt more grassroots and, you know, people felt like they really connected with the things that they were seeing, I think you'd find a lot more people involved. And sometimes that feels intentional, where they're like, well, we only want the sport to be, or the activity to be so big because that's what the spaces can allow for and capacity to hold. So that's an interesting point, because and you brought up, like, why are you filming hunting? Like, we shouldn't be out there. And, you know, there's movements, you know, that are kind of anti-filming this stuff. And I understand it to a certain extent, you know, but there is a fine line, right? Because, like,
you can say, all right, if we do this too much, we don't want to like oversaturate. But if you don't do it at all, you don't talk about it at all, then it could die. And we can lose like privileges to hunt in certain spaces and maybe get land back that we should be getting back. So it is, I think it's just like anything, man. It's nuanced, and we have to, look at it from all angles. Part of it is making films and telling stories. Part of it is grassroots, organizations. Part of it is just being more maybe not responsible, but thoughtful about marketing. Like thoughtful about how you're doing it so that you're attracting the right people, Yep.
Well, and dude, look, I mean, Colorado this election year was a great example of like, had there not been an outreach and dare I say like R3 efforts, I know that can be a dirty word now too, but like had there not been that, which I think is total bullshit, by the way, but had there not been that R3 activity and that education and that outreach to not just like younger hunters, but like, like educationally to older hunters as well, like there would be a ban on line hunting in Colorado.
And then soon to be a ban on all hunting.
Exactly.
Of it.
Because that's the point. It's like black, white, brown, doesn't matter. That side's not resting. Like they're not gonna chill back and be like, oh no, like Kenny can shoot ducks whenever he wants. Like
until I can't anymore. And it's the same thing when you hear hunters and everyone's bitching about the way somebody does something, right? And it's like, you're not a hunter because you hunt on private land, or you use a crossbow, or and it's like, dude, like we should all be coming together.
Just chill. Just
stop dividing.
And there's a big aspect of like what you guys do in making your films and showing the things that you show, that it is necessitized because of the gatekeeping and secrecy and inability to like educate and take people under their wing and mentor mentees, I mean, I don't think I ever had a mentor that was like an 85-year-old man that like wanted to give me all of his elk hunting secrets. It's always been like, people that have been in similar situations that are like maybe similar age or similar background. So like you're sitting here going like, okay, I'm going to tell these stories to maybe help the next black guy that wants to duck hunt, or the next, city kid that, wants to figure out how to chase quail. It's almost a necessity to educate people.
I mean, it's funny because I'm like, I feel lucky because I've just like, I've met the old dudes that are like, oh, let me tell you about this spot. Oh, I've got this steelhead spot. So I've been really, really, really lucky in that. But
I am overgeneralizing. I will admit that too.
I recognize that luck that I have. And then even when you think about it, like a lot of the idea behind the gatekeeping side of things, we're lucky out west, right? Like think about those boys in Louisiana, Arkansas, Texas, like they don't have access to public land. So then it's like when there is public land, there's this like fight to keep it sacred and secret.
Totally.
Because if you have 1,000 more hunters out there, now you're like racing that many more people. I mean, it's to get to a spot, and like you have to stay, like they just don't have the same access that we do, which I think like skews our thoughts a little bit more. And I recognize that because when I start hearing about the stories out there, and I'm like, man, whoa, we're lucky. Like you can go fish like and catch steelhead 25 minutes out from my house, like I can salmon fish 5 minutes from my doorstep, boat in the water 5 minutes, and it's like we're like, I'm lucky here, whereas like it's not the same way everywhere. And I have to acknowledge that like the gatekeeping thing does make a little sense in some capacity, but it's a way of we have to figure it out at the end of the day. And the only way that we can save public land from moving further and further extinct, I think, is by bringing more people and more voices into these spaces.
And we've already talked about how the turnover rate of new hunters is quite high anyway. So for it to stick, it's like you got to keep those efforts up.
100%. Right? Like if I don't have any level of success and I don't have a community, I'm not doing this. Like, why am I gonna go get rained on and get tired and climb hills
just to watch your dog
to
bitch.
not win.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, that's awesome.
Well, one thing I like watching your films, I think I really connected with is that you're not afraid to like kind of go deep, you know, with like how you're feeling and what this kind of stuff is doing for you mentally and maybe even spiritually, like on that level that just goes so deep, and how it sort of helps you kind of grow through life. And that's definitely like a huge thing for me. That's why I do this. Like, honestly, I think at the core, like I resonate with some of your story too. Like I went through some really, really hard stuff, and to the point where I had to like quit a job I had, figure, you know, stuff out on my own. And it was a really tough time, and like, had to find a bit of sobriety for myself and go through that process. But man, getting outdoors, not just getting outside, but doing this thing, hunting, fishing, eating the food I catch, like it was like pretty magical for me. And
yeah,
I think that's something maybe sometimes you see in stories that are told about this kind of thing, but I don't think that's told enough either. And I think because a lot of the people that are telling stories grew up hunting. And so they didn't have that moment where they're like, I kind of need this, like for my soul, you know?
Yeah.
So like, how did that like
repairing bass damage?
Yeah, seriously, dude. And so like, yeah, like how did that kind of come about? Like, not that we need to go necessarily like so deep on it, but like, how does that resonate with you? That sort of aspect to hunting, you know?
I think it was just like, cause I made a film before this on my experience, pseudo homelessness and like depression, and it was a mountain biking film for the most part, but it's kind of covering the same topics of just being in the spaces and how healing it is, and not really knowing that until I got to finally experience it for myself, and then being like, why does no one talk about this part of it? Like,
yeah,
everyone has to feel this. I can't be alone. And then I'm talking with other people, and I'm like, oh, I'm not the only person, one, going through hard shit and trying to like find the balance. And then also finding the healing by being in these spaces. And I'm like, so I should just talk about it. If I need to hear it, and I'm here having these conversations with people in private, other people will feel like they're not alone. And I think like as a filmmaker, you should have a desire to hopefully leave some sort of impact with the stuff we're doing. It's not just about selling product, but it's about leaving something behind. And so I just was like, you know what, fuck it. Like, even if I have to tell my own stories and be vulnerable about myself, like, if I can do that, then when people see my work and they see that I'm vulnerable, it allows them to be vulnerable. And that's kind of my interview style is very conversational in the work that I do. So it's like I have this rule that I'm like, I won't go any deeper than I expect you to go. So like, if I want you to tell me your deepest, darkest secrets and bleed in front of the camera, like I have to do that as well. So
that's cool. Yeah, man, it's motivated me a lot, and I've tapped into it a little bit, but like it's like hard for me to kind of open up as much as you've done in your films, and it's like it's really inspiring, and it makes me want to kind of dig a little deeper on some of the stuff I'm making. So
you 100%
dude, hats off to like, well, it's also just like kind of applauding you for it too, because it's made an impact on me and it's encouraging me to do the same. So yeah, like, well done, dude. It's cathartic. It's really awesome. Yeah, totally. It is. I'm like, kind of like, I have a new film I'm working on right now, and I went out to, you know, when I first got into this, I actually had like an older friend who grew up on his family's ranch, and they have tons of land, you know, an hour or two from where we are right now, and he taught me how to hunt. And on my first hunt, I got a sow, like literally. So I got kind of lucky, right? Like I got that experience, and I had to put some, you know, pay some dues after that. But, you know, but it was really cool and a really amazing experience. And I finally got to bring a couple of my friends out to the same ranch, and I just filmed it this time. And so it was really special to watch that, you know, them go through it. And not only was it like a couple of their like first time getting a wild pig, it was a father-son. And so it was like this really, and I have, you know, some stuff that like we all do, like with our parents, that, you know, if we really dig deep, and I'm like, I haven't written the voiceover for it yet, but I kind of know what I want to say. And it's like, it's going to be my opportunity, I think, to dig a little bit deep. So it's,
hell yeah.
It's cool, man. Like I feel like it's starting to happen. I'm starting to get my Kenny inspiration going.
Yeah,
here
dude.
soon.
We can. I think we could change the industry one film at a time.
Bro.
You know.
Yeah, totally.
Dude, you're gonna talk to us next time. John's gonna have a goddamn doodle.
I hope so, man. We gotta popularize these babies in the hunting industry. Your hunting dog can also be cute and sexy and a great hunter.
I'm kind of thinking of getting Brittany. Actually,
yeah, Brittany's
those
cool.
are cute little dogs.
Those are cool, man, and they're not super big. We have 2 dogs and 2 cats and like a 900 square foot space, so it's like not a lot of room, and we don't have a yard. So, but I do have areas where I could take my dog. But I don't know if we're ready for a 5th animal yet. But when the time comes, I think of Brittany. Something like that's gonna be cool.
So then, how with you having this background, working and being in the hunting world, do you now being around new hunters, do you almost feel like this like obligation or like this pressure to then bring new people into the fold? Like where did it come from for you to work with like younger?
I'm not that old. No, honestly, like it's like I think on some level it's been very difficult for me to find community, like even in hunting and even in angling. I have a lot of values and opinions and ideas that aren't traditionally shared in the area. You know, I was fortunate to find some really, really awesome people in Texas, and there's always things in common. Like, John and I, we often talk about skateboarding. You and I, we're both competitive athletes. There's like a bond there, right? Mm-hmm. There's no obligation. I like things that push the envelope. I like breaking rules. I like changing changing the narrative, so that like we can kind of create what we want out of the culture. And I have seen, owning this store, I meet people every single day, and generally they're all really, really, really good people. But that said, I know if we like sat together for a week at deer camp, like we disagree quite a bit. And we probably, the 3 of us probably would disagree too, but I think there'd be a lot more where we'd be like, oh man, it's so nice to like, that I'm hunting with somebody who actually thinks the same thing about this, that, or the other. And, and then the other part of it is like, look, like it is good for business. Like, I think I'd be lying if I said like, oh, I just do this because like I love giving back. Like I do, and I've made some amazing friends, but also like I want to make sure like when you come down here and you go pig hunting that like you're set up for success, whether it be like buying something at my store or talking to the right guides or outfitters or whatever. All that stuff to me is like, it's just like a full, I'm trying to circle of life in a way, but no, it's way more fun to be doing these types of things than, sitting around like being a curmudgeon and being like, oh, that guy's dumb. He's only been doing it a year,
I think you're also like, I saw that kind of like that glow you had after your nephew just started he got interested in hunting, right? And I think that was I kind of saw that like young, and I know it's maybe a little bit different, but it's the idea of you ushering like new people into this, even someone like your nephew who's how old is he now?
10.
Yeah. And he was at one of our events. He had some boar for the first time.
He never had wild boar. John made him a plate, and he was like, that's the best thing I've ever had.
And you were so stoked on that. And then once he got, even further into it.
Mostly because I hadn't eaten it yet, and I was like, okay, John didn't fuck it up. No, but you're right. Yeah. Like, I love the fact, like, Kenny, I sell licenses and tags in here. Okay. And it's super cool when like you get a kid, or not a kid, like an adult too, that comes in for their first like hunting license, you know? It's awesome. And like I actually started like I want to start like doing Polaroids of everybody that like gets
Yo,
their
that's
first
a
hunting
great
license
idea.
or fishing
That
license,
is.
and like put it on the I don't know the back wall or something. But
That's cool.
Yeah, I do like to give back, and I do like to see. And there's a big element too, which is like, okay, like if I'm gonna take on this responsibility, like we got to make sure like, you know, my nephew or John knows the right way. Like, hey, like let's set you up for success, and that goes back to like what we were talking about a little earlier about, you know, like I didn't necessarily have that. I had to learn a lot of stuff through failure, and you know, I was very fortunate with fly fishing and bird hunting, but outside of that, you know, it was kind of on my own.
Yeah. Well, Kenny, like what's next? What do you got on the horizon? Any cool projects or any projects that are maybe kind of like wrapped that you'll be putting out soon? What are you up to?
I was filming a hunt recently with no intention. We didn't have any idea what we were doing. It was just more so just like filming some duck hunting stuff. And I had never shot a greenhead yet, a Drake Mallard. End of the day, there's like 8 minutes left of shooting time. And I shot a greenhead. And it was banded.
Oh, yeah, I did see you post that. Yeah.
So we're making a film, and then I've got because we've got a lot of good footage there, and so I'm gonna end up, you know, shooting the beginning, the middle, you know, making a film out of what we have. Totally. And then I've got a film that I'm working on with another really good friend of mine, brand new hunter, about gun culture.
Okay.
That I'm very, very excited about because we have different opinions about guns, and he leans more towards like anti-gun, but his mind has been open to guns now that he's gotten into hunting, and so we want to kind of make I want to make some pieces that matter, you know, like hopefully that like move the needle as far as culture goes in America or the world, I suppose, but America for sure.
Yeah, I love that about what you do. Like where I'm really focused on making like hunting, fishing films. I love that you're like, it's a lot broader for you. Like you tap into hunting culture quite a bit, but I think that's really interesting that you're, you know, doing mountain biking stuff. You're doing this gun film. I think that's really interesting, and it does, I think, carry with it a really cool message that just shapes that whole larger narrative really well.
Well, Kenny, if you ever want to do like California premiere, man, the shop is open to you. We'll share some, throw a party and show some films and pair them up with John's and just do like a movie night. And
hell yeah,
that'd be super fun, man.
And maybe a weekend hunt.
Yeah, heck yeah, we'll go shoot some pigs or chase them anyway.
We got some ranches now that maybe we can get on. So
or John's secret spot on the railroad track.
My secret spot. Jesus. Can't believe I did that. Oh man.
All good. How do people find you, man? Like Instagram, Facebook?
Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, website, Better Days West.
Everything.
BetterDaysWest. Better Days West. And it's betterdayswest.com.
Awesome, man.
Well,
yeah.
It's been a pleasure. Let's meet up in person and you know, watch that dog hunt. And
looking forward to it.